switch back to this. Double check, make sure it's recording the voice, because sometimes I forget to switch the source of the mic, and it will just be recording a silent movie, which may not be as helpful as with the voice. Okay. All right. So what we'll do today is, first of all, we'll find out how to get the environment working first. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Not a problem. Well, I want to demonstrate that we do have regular effective context, so whenever you raise your hand, I want to double check, make sure. Okay, so let me just kind of go through a demonstration of how to get things working first, okay, so that you guys can get a feel of one way of doing programming in this class. It's actually really cool, okay, so what you do is you go to App Inventor, spelled appinventor.mit.edu. It's all in the notes too, so you don't really have to write this down. Okay, App Inventor is a website, but it also is a programming tool. Okay, so for this class, you need internet access in order to develop your programs. So as soon as you get there, you'll be presented with the splash page or the home page of App Inventor, and when you're ready to do your actual development started, you just click create apps, okay? And as soon as you click that, it wants you to sign into one of your Google accounts, okay? Your school Google account works too, okay? So your W7-digit account at Los Rios would actually work, okay? But in order to use that one, what you want to do is to sign into apps.losrios.edu first. So I'm going to sign into mine. First, and then I go back to App Inventor. So it automatically knows that I have signed into one Google account, and it will just ask me, okay, do you want to use this particular Google account? Now, if you don't want to use your school Google account and you have some other Google accounts, you can definitely use your other Google accounts as well. Okay, so it's up to you. I would just choose one to use and just kind of stick with that one, because all of your projects will be grouped together. So I would just click Allow, and the next screen is the agreement screen. So you have to click the agreement stuff here. So just scroll down and click I accept the terms of service. Okay, and this is the tool. Okay, this is the tool. Gives you a little warning about release notes and whatnot. That's okay. It also gives you a link to how to set things up, but I will guide you through that process as well of how to set things up. So I'm not going to click on these links. All right. So I'll go back to my projects. This is the actual home screen. So as we have projects done, it will list all of your projects. Okay. This is not stored on the thumb drive. This is not stored on my hard drive. This is stored in the cloud, which is great because it means that you don't need to bring something to store your projects. Okay, when you sign into appinventor.mit.edu, it has all your projects. Is that okay? So unlike your other programming classes where you have to store your programs on the thumb drive or on something, this one is kind of automatic, which is really nice. But you do need internet access when you want to work with this. All right, so I'm going to pick one. I can start a new project, so I'll just click Start New Project and give it a name. I'll just say Test 1. And Test 1 is now a new project, and it automatically opens up the development page, which looks just like what you're seeing on the whiteboard. Okay, this is WYSIWYG. Okay, this class is as WYSIWYG as it can possibly get. Okay, to a very annoying level later on, because you cannot really type your program. Everything has to be WYSIWYG. Okay. All right, so when we get to this point, okay, I'm not even going to bother with actually programming anything, but I'll just go ahead and drag a button for the sake of being able to demonstrate something. Okay, so I'm just dragging a button from user interface, which is this pane over here, into the middle pane, which is the viewer. So now the question is, how do I test run this rather useless application, because I want to tell you guys, the various ways to run your programs. Is that okay? Are there any questions up to this point? Okay, all right. So you go to connect. This will give you all the different options. AI companion means that you want to use your own mobile device to test your program. But there's one catch, okay? AI companion is a really handy way to test your program on an actual Android device. But there's one catch. The catch is the PC and your Android device, they have to be on the same Wi-Fi network, which is not happening in this classroom because your computers are connected using the wired Ethernet, but your mobile device is probably on Wi-Fi. So this approach does not work in this lab unless we do something about it. Okay, I have not tested it yet, but if someone wants to test it later on, after 10:30, I have a little Wi-Fi dongle, USB Wi-Fi dongle, so I can just plug it in to one of these PCs and see if the PC will use the Wi-Fi network instead of the wired network. Because if you can get the PC onto the Wi-Fi network, then you can use the first approach, which is AI companion. Okay, it's handy, it's convenient, but it does require that your PC is on the same Wi-Fi network as your mobile device. Okay, all right. So what if you don't have a mobile device at all? What if you don't have an Android device? Well, the second option is really kind of cool, because what it does is you can run a virtual Android device on this computer, on a desktop computer. But to do that, you will have to first install some software. I have it installed on this computer already. So let me just go to one command line to start it up. So I go to /usr/google/app-inventor/ I think it's commands for app inventor, and I have to type AI starter. Okay, this is Linux based. My computer is Linux based. There's an equivalent command in Windows. Okay, so this will work in Windows as well. Okay, but there's a catch to that as well. I'll talk about that later. Okay, so once I press enter here, I'm starting a particular command. It doesn't seem to do much. Okay, it's basically a little web server doing some funky stuff. That's basically what it is. But now I can switch back to App Inventor, go back to Connect, and click Emulator. So what you're seeing here is the emulator starting up, and App Inventor is just saying, okay, this will take a while. I'm going to wait until the emulator is up and running. So you can see now this is the emulator. This is a virtual Android device to test your program. So you don't need to buy an Android device to test your programs. Okay, and you can see that it's actually pretty fast. Okay, this is much faster than I expected. Okay, so now the Android device is up and running, and App Inventor, which is the development platform, is now trying to communicate with the emulated Android device to start up the AI companion part on the other side. So it shows you that it's waiting. So if you click on the browser, it shows that it is waiting to start up AI companion on the emulator. It's waiting a little bit more time. And if you switch back to the emulator, you can see that the AI companion is running, but it is out of date. Okay, so when you go back to here, it says right here, your companion app is out of date. Click OK to start the update and stuff like that. Okay, because this is the first time that I start up the first time I start up the emulator in this environment. Okay, once you have done this once and you save the emulator, it won't ask you again for an update. Okay, so I say OK, and if you switch back to the emulator, the software is getting updated now. Okay, it wants you to click got it. This is kind of important. It means you don't want to restart the app on the other side. So it says replace application. Just click OK. It shows you all the permissions that are needed. Just click install here. This is a virtual device. It's not an actual device. And this is the important part. After the installation, it will give you an option. We'll see that option shortly. Okay, right here. This is the option. So this is after the application is updated. It will give you the option of either open or done. You want to click done. You don't want to open it right away. So I will show you. I'll click done here, and then on the other side, back on App Inventor, you want to go to Connect, and then you want to click Reset Connection, which will turn off the virtual Android device, and then you can start it again by using Connect and then Emulator. But this time, when it starts the emulator, this is already updated, so it will be ready to run the app this time. Are there any questions? I know there are quite a few steps involved, but remember, everything is being recorded, and the website also contains instructions to do this. So I'm just going to wait a little bit until AI Companion starts in the emulator, and the app will be running right away. Yep, go ahead.
Are you able to hook up a Android device using a USB connection?
That also requires some extra software to be installed. The big problem is, we do not have administrative right here, and this stuff gets updated all the time, so we can't really use the typical approach of doing things around here. So I'll give you guys an alternative way of doing things, and you guys can tell me whether you want it or not. Okay, so now we have the emulator running here. This is the application development platform. And the emulator is actually working. In other words, I can click it here, except there's no code corresponding to the button. So when I click it, nothing happens. Okay, but you can also see if you make any changes to your app. If I just say, okay, let's add another button over here, you can see the emulator automatically is updated. So as soon as you update the code on the side of App Inventor, the emulator, in this case, also gets updated. So that makes it kind of easy and fun to test your program, because you don't have to go through like, oh, you have to recompile, rebuild the whole thing, and then run it again. It's automatically updating the emulator. Are there any questions? No questions so far? Yep, go ahead.
So are we going to download this software onto these computers?
Okay, that's a very good question. That is a very good question. If you download, okay, let me go back to the help screen of App Inventor. So let's see. No, that's not. Because I want to guide. Get started. Set up instructions. Okay, so this is actually from the App Inventor website. It gives you 3 options. Remember, the first option is using AI Companion and a Wi-Fi network. Okay, that is by far the easiest way of doing things, but it does have 2 requirements. One is you have an Android device, and 2, your development computer and your Android device, they have to be both on the same Wi-Fi network. Okay, which can be a problem. Okay, if one of you wants to do this, you can help me test. I will give you this dongle, plug it into the computer and see if you can get it to talk to the Wi-Fi network here. Does anyone want to help me out here? Or I can do it, after 9:30, at 10:30. It may or may not work because it depends on whether the driver is already on these computers. Remember, we do not have administrative rights whatsoever. So if the driver is not already installed, we cannot install new drivers. That's the problem. Okay, and even if we can install the driver, whether it can hook up to the Wi-Fi network here is the next question. Okay, so we'll test that approach. The second approach is to use an emulator. Now, when you use an emulator, you also have to follow the additional instruction, which is to install an additional program. Okay, you have to install the App Inventor setup software. There's one version for Mac OS X. If you use a Mac, it's good. There's one for Windows and there's one for Linux. But there is also a catch here. The catch is to install this, you also need administrative rights. Okay, now I can tell the lab people to install this on every single computer here, which helps, okay? But what if you want to do your homework assignment somewhere else and not in this classroom? Then you have to install this on all of those computers, on the other computer that you want to use for homework assignment. Do you see the problem? It's not a very portable approach. Yep.
Just out of curiosity, do we have to use this environment, or can we use a different environment?
We are going to use App Inventor as the environment, because the alternative, which is programming in Java, is way beyond what we can do as a class.
The only reason I asked is because the Android developers have created the Android Studio.
Yes.
Can we just use that?
No, because that is still Java based.
Okay.
Because Android Studio is kind of like the replacement of Eclipse,
Yeah.
which is a great platform for conventional programming, which means you have to type in the program for the most part. App Inventor does not have any typing whatsoever, and that's how we can offer this class with only a co-requisite of cisp362. Because otherwise, you will have to learn Java first before you can actually write any code. So that's the catch. There are a lot of catches here. Okay, so this approach is not going to work well because it still requires you to install some software onto the computer that you're working with. I have tried for a lot of time to make this portable, which means you can install the software onto a thumb drive and then insert the thumb drive and be able to run from the thumb drive itself. But that turned out to be a little bit difficult. Okay, I have not finished that process yet. Okay, all right. So what is the other alternative? Okay, does someone have a thumb drive that you can spare? Let me see if I can have one here. Let me see if I have one already in here. Because I want to show you this possible solution. And out of all the days that I have my thumb drives, I forgot to bring a spare thumb drive today. Does anyone have one? Because I need to erase all the content on that thumb drive, so I don't want you to give me something that has useful information. Can I erase the whole thing?
Yeah, I think it's like.
It's empty? Okay, you sure? You want to check this?
I did clear it out. That's
Okay.
okay.
It's okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so but I'll just talk about it. I'm not going to do anything.
Okay.
All right. So here's the really kind of cool thing. It's there are a few steps to do this, but once it is done, it is cool. Okay. So this is what we can do. I have a way to install Linux, the same environment that I'm using right here, onto a thumb drive. Okay. Well, it only needs about 4 gigs, and this one has got 8 gigabytes, so it's plenty for this class. So I can install Linux along with everything that you need to run App Inventor and the emulator onto a thumb drive. It will include the browser, basically everything that I use in this class. It will be the same thing, exactly the same thing, on the thumb drive. So the only thing you need to do is to make sure that you can reboot a computer and have it boot from the USB thumb drive instead of the internal hard drive. That is the only requirement. All of these computers in this lab, they are already set up, so they can all boot from an external media like this one. So that means when we are in this class during the lab time, using this approach will solve the problem for sure. Okay. And then the second thing is, if you take your thumb drive out of this class, you go home. Okay. You can also use exactly the same approach. You can just reboot your computer at home. It can be a laptop computer, it can be a desktop computer. Just make sure that it will look for the external drive first, or you can press F12 to get into the boot menu, and then you can force the computer to boot from the thumb drive. Then you can also get into the same environment using exactly the same tools. Okay, so would that approach work for you guys or not? It might.
What if you have like a Mac?
If you have a Mac, you actually can use this approach. You can use instructions for Mac OS X.
Oh.
Is it a laptop or is it a desktop? It's a laptop. If it's a laptop, it's easier because you can bring it with you to class. So when we work on the homework assignment or when we work on projects during the lab time, you can just work on it on your Mac OS. Okay. So you have an easier solution. If you have a laptop computer on your own and you don't mind bringing it to the class, you can use any approach you want because you have administrative right. You can install whatever is needed to get the things going. The problem is with people who do not want to bring their computer because they may not have a laptop computer, and hauling your desktop computer to this computer lab may not be a good option unless you're looking for exercise, right? Okay, so we only have issues if you're not bringing your laptop computer. If you bring your own laptop computer, guess what? It's on Wi-Fi already. So you can use the AI companion, you can use the emulator approach, you have choices, okay? And it doesn't even matter what type of laptop you're bringing in. You can bring in a Linux laptop, you can bring in a Mac OS 10 laptop, you can bring in a Windows laptop. We are all okay with that. It's only a problem or an issue if you do not want to bring your computer in, but you want to be able to work in the lab as well as other computers that you have access to, then we are talking about this. Okay. Does everybody understand the issues or potential issues? Thank you so much. No questions? Okay.
Different
Yep. Okay, go ahead.
If we're not learning Java, where does the programming come in?
I can show you, in about 5 minutes. Okay, go ahead.
Just wondering, if we're trying to connect an Android device to the AI companion, would that device need a SIM card or does it just need an SD card?
So we get a question.
So if we have an Android device, does it have to function as a phone or does it only need to connect to Wi-Fi?
It only needs to connect to Wi-Fi. It does not need function as a phone, so you don't need 4G or 3G access.
Gotcha. Right.
So you just need to have access to the Wi-Fi network.
Right.
And it has to be the same network as your laptop or desktop computer. That's all. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, so let me go address the question of, if we are not using Java, how are we writing code in this class, okay? How many people are taking cisp362 this semester? Okay, so we get about a third of the class, taking that class. So I can recognize a few people here who have taken a lot of programming classes already. So you guys already know C, C++, which is pretty close to Java in terms of syntax, okay? So let me just kind of give you a quick demonstration of how to write code in this class. So this is the GUI side. You design the application with all the buttons, text boxes, and stuff like that. So I'm going to put in 2 text boxes here. So it's all drag and drop, pretty easy to do. Okay, there you go. So I just put in 2 text boxes, and I'm going to put in maybe one label, which means it can display something, but it cannot be used as input. Okay, so what I want to do is I will put in something in the first text box, put in something in the text box, and I want, when I press the first button, which is now saying text for first button 1, I wanted to compare the text in the first box to the text in the second box and tell me which one is greater. That's all. Is that okay? All right. So very simple program. But the point is, how do we specify code in this environment? So we switched from designer to blocks. Okay, this is a little switch that can allow you to switch from the design view, which is the GUI side, to blocks, which is the code side. So when you switch to blocks, it looks like this, and you can see that all of our user interface elements are here already. So what you can do is you can go to button 1 because this is event driven. In other words, your computer or your Android device is not doing anything until you do something first. Okay? So when you click a button, it is called an event. And an event handler is triggered by you doing something with the user interface. So that means in this case, if I want to do something when button 1 is clicked, I just drag this block, put it into my program. Okay? Now I can specify the code inside this block here. So when button 1 is clicked, I want to check the text in text box 1 and in text box 2 to see which one is greater. I want to compare, right? And depending on the result of the comparison, I wanted to display this, that, and another message in the label. So I need a conditional statement, okay? And if you have not taken cisp300 or any programming classes already, a conditional statement is basically what we call a branch. So based on a condition that can be either be true or false, it can go one way or another way. Okay, it can choose two branches between, depending on the condition being either true or false. Okay, so I'm going to drag one of these things and just stash it here. Did you guys just see what happened? I drag it in, and as soon as it snapped, it made the enclosing block bigger to accommodate what I dragged into the outer block. This is what we'll be doing the entire semester. Drag, drop, snap. Okay? But the question now is, what do I do with this? Okay? Now you can also add an else, because we want to do something different depending when the condition is false. And this little notch here allows you to specify the condition. Okay? Something that can either be true or false. So now we need to go to comparison, which is, I'm guessing it is under text. Right here, it has compare. So there we go. So we drag and drop that compare operation, compare text. And right now it is only comparing for less than. Okay, we can specify greater than. If you want to change the comparison operator, just click the drop down box, and now we can choose which one we want to use. So we'll just kind of focus on less than right now. Okay. This little box here is what we're comparing along with this one here. So what we're comparing is the actual content of text box 1 and the actual content of text box 2. So what you do is you go to text box 1 and you look for the property of the actual text in the box, which scrolls down and go here, text box 1 text, it goes here. And then you can do the same thing with text box 2. There are quicker ways to do it, but I'm just using a particular way to do it. So now we have a conditional statement that will either go to the then branch, which has nothing right now, or the else branch, which also has nothing right now. But I have completely finished with the condition, which is based on the comparison of the content of text box 1 as opposed to the content of text box 2. And it will only be true, this condition is true only if the content of text box 1 is less than the content of text box 2. Are we still doing okay so far with the logic of this code? Okay. So the then and the else, I just want to change the label to reflect the result here. Okay, so I go to label 1, and I can go to set text. Okay, so right here, and you can also do copy and paste. So copy and paste. Oops. You can right click and say duplicate, so now we have two blocks like that. And there's a little warning flag here. It says right here, okay, you probably cannot read it. It basically says we have some missing arguments. In other words, there are some slots that has not been filled, like this one and this one here. I want to change the text of label 1, but what do I want to change it to? I haven't specified yet, right? So we now have to specify the actual new content of label 1. So you go to text here, scroll all the way up, and just specify the constant, okay, the literal constant, and say, oh, I want to change the text to, I'll just do something simple. It would just say less than in one case, and I will just say not less than in the other case. So not less than, like so. I have just finished my little program here. Okay, so this program allows you to interactively change the content of text box 1 and text box 2. You click button 1, and it will tell you whether the content of text box 1 is less than the content of text box 2. Okay? Well, do we know for sure the program is going to do that? No, you never trust me. Okay, you never trust Tag with what he said the program is going to do. So what do? You test it. Okay. And how do we test it? I don't even have it hooked up to a mobile device. But we have the emulator. Very good. So we switch back to the emulator here, which is automatically updated. So the code is already in here. So we go to text box 1, we input something, we'll just say, tag. Oops. Oh, it wants me to actually type it. It won't take it from the keyboard. Ah, that is annoying. So I'm going to use uppercase TAK here. I'm not sure whether, can you guys see it well enough? Okay. So, and then in the other text box, I click done. In the other text box, I just use lowercase TAK. So this is kind of like a trick question. Okay, so if I click button 1, do you think uppercase TAK is less than lowercase TAK? Okay, does anyone remember the ASCII codes? ASCII stands for American Standard Code for Information Interchange. Okay, in other words, every single character, every single punctuation, every single digit is encoded by some kind of a binary number. Okay, and it so happens that the uppercase letters are less than the lowercase letters. Okay, so the answer is it should be less than. Okay, but well, let's check it. So I click button 1, and you can see how the label is now saying less than. I mean, not clearly because the text is a little bit small, but it does respond and give us the correct answer. So that is how we are going to write programs in this class. So is that kind of addressing your question?
Yeah.
And because you asked that question, I can almost guarantee that at some point you'll be so annoyed by all this dragging and dropping because there's no typing. You cannot type. You have to drag and drop. Okay, but there.
Easier.
Sorry.
It's a little easier.
It's easier from the perspective that you don't have to deal with syntax at all, because if something doesn't snap, it means it should not be snapped together. So there's no way you can actually have syntax error in this class. None ever. Okay? But at the same time, it's really kind of difficult to write code because anything that is complicated will take a lot of dragging and dropping and clicking and editing. Okay? So it's kind of annoying from that perspective. But if you're just starting out programming, taking cisp362 this semester, this is great, okay? Because you don't have to deal with syntax. Everything just kind of snaps together. You can experiment really, really quickly. You don't have to spend a lot of time to learn the syntax, the tools, and stuff like that. So is that working out so far or not? Working out so far? All right. So we are coming up against the end of the lecture, so I'm going to stop right here, take a little 5-minute break or so, and then we'll come back, for the lab time, because I just want to get you guys started, with this whole tool thing. And if you have a thumb drive that you want to test out this approach, just give me the thumb drive, and we'll go ahead and get it started. So let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break, and we'll be back at 10:30. Well, let's make it a 10-minute, 10:35.